This
what
conference will now
RAR
be
is all about.
recorded.
So that we will take all of it. Some of the terms, since you are in finance, you maybe not be so different. You might have heard and you might be familiar with those terms. Maybe I don't know for others how it will be familiar, whether you are familiar or not. But yeah, once we get it, I will take 1 or 2 sessions to get these things slowly started with the terms and what are the different terms that we use it, and then we can start into in a more intense manner later. So first two sessions we can focus on the basic concepts of it. So if you, as you said, somebody has worked on ECC. Now currently we have S4HANA with RAR, which is 2023 version. So yeah, many of the companies may be using 2020 and 2021 still, but the latest is 2023 with some of the changes. So few changes are like, as for any other software, they have just upgraded few of the features and then provided few feasibilities in the software that we can discuss when we in the regular sessions, as and when some topic comes up, I can just add what are the changes from 2021, 2022 to 2023. So if you all know that now in 2018, IFRS has come up with the guidelines, implementation of IFRS 15. That is when this RAR and revenue recognition is now widely used, and it is a mandatory requirement for all the companies to show their accounting as per the IFRS principles. So with this implementations, the RAR or any other revenue recognition concepts have now come up, and then all the companies are now supposed to show their revenue based on those concepts or those guidelines. So actually, if you see, pretty much, I think the services that have come up, what recently these bundles where, like for example, if you take a HP printer, they have come up with services. Phone, you have services. Cars, you have services. It's like everywhere the service-based model. So based on a service-based model, and when they are selling in bundles or when there is some implicit service, I can say, if that is there, then the companies cannot show their revenue upfront. So the basic concept here that has come up is like, they call performance obligation, where when you sell something to the customer, when the customer gets a service, that is when you have to recognize the revenue. Like for example, you might have paid to the company. For example, they are selling a product. They said they are selling it for $1,200, and then they have come up with an offer saying, we will give it to you for $1,000 if you pay for us for a year, for example. This is just an example. So you pay $1,000 and you get the service. So the business cannot show that $1,000, like you paid them in January. So the business cannot show the $1,000 as their revenue in January itself, because the customer has only received the services or going to receive the services for January. And for February to December, the services are not yet given, but they have already got the payment. So in those cases, they have to defer that revenue, and every month they have to show the revenue recognition. So this is the basic idea of all this revenue recognition process on which the RAR is developed. So if you see, you may have a sale from the stock. So this is revenue recognized. If you also can have a service, or sometimes there may be projects where the service will be recognized based on a milestone wise. So in those cases, you will have all these scenarios will fall under the service recognition. So if you have sell a car and the revenue can be recognized upfront, not upfront, when you invoice a customer, that is when you want to recognize the revenue. Some company has sold a software, so that is when they wanted to recognize the revenue. Services, over a period of time they have given services, so they have to recognize the revenue. So if we come here, there are 5 steps in the IFRS, which are very imperative, and then these are the 5 steps on which the revenue recognition process is built. So what it is? So when we sell a sales to the customer, we will get a sales order, right? So the sales order from the operational system will create a revenue contract. In the revenue contract, now it is not different. RAR is same as S4HANA, is same on S4HANA. So when the revenue contract is created, that is what you are saying now, there is a sales order and this is a contract. And the contract will have different, sales order will have different items. So if I put it here, like, let me just open an Excel and okay, let's think there is a sales order. Okay, this is the operational document. You have item 1, item 2, and item 3. Okay. Now this one will flow to the RAR. I will tell you how it flows also in the upcoming classes as a revenue contract. And this revenue contract will have different POBs. These are the performance obligation. The simplest case will be one item in the sales order can have one POB. So this is the simplest example, 1:1. Or sometimes what can happen is you can have a sales order 1.
I'm sorry, I have a question. If you
Yes, please.
Can you please explain this POB 1, 2, 3, how they are linked to the item 1, item 2? Are those like line items or something?
Yes, these are like, for example, let's think you have a headphone or cell phone. Okay, this is item 1. Then you have call, you have text services. Okay. So when you get a contract, the POB will be 1. See, in the contract, the terminology is performance obligation. So within a contract, you will have performance obligations. So this cell phone 1 will become performance obligation 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes what can also happen is this is not there, but you can. I mean, I don't know how many industries use it, but the feature is you have a sales order 1. You have, say, suppose you have a software. Okay. You have taken some service 1, and later you have come and said that I want service 2, which is associated somehow with the software itself. So this sales order creates revenue contract with 2 POBs. And if you want to bring this service also under this contract, you can do so, and this becomes POB3. So basically the idea here is you may buy 2 different products at 2 different points, or a product and a service or something at 2 different point of time. But based on the IFRS rules, you are supposed to club those things and then show the revenue recognized. If that is the case, then you can combine the 2 sales orders into one revenue contract. So this is not a straightforward case as I have shown you here above. This is a simple and straightforward case. For this, you need an enhancement.
Lakshmi got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So sales order is a document in SD side, right?
Correct.
And what about revenue contract? Is it also
This is
another SD document, or is it a FI document?
This is a revenue accounting contract document, which we call
Okay.
RAR.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
this
if
is operational.
okay, so if in the sales order we have a product also, so will that product um, go on to revenue contract as well?
You
Like,
mean the
like
product means
item one,
item? That's what you are saying, right?
yeah, item one has the cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
and cell phone is suppose I purchase outright,
Mm-hmm.
but on the cell phone I have a service for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and again we have call, we have text.
Mm-hmm.
So for cell phone I have paid $500. For the
Mm-hmm.
service on the cell phone, I have paid suppose $100 for
Mm-hmm.
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for call and text, we have separate contracts for 2 years for
Mm-hmm.
$50 every month.
Okay.
So on this one, will all the four items go into the revenue contract, or the cell phone that is already paid for will not go?
Okay. All the four will go into the contract. Here, see, the
Okay.
business will decide what all put together they want to show as they want to put it into one revenue contract. For example, as you have mentioned, you have four items here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's put this as service.
Yep.
Okay, now if business decides that, I just want to bring these two into a
Mm-hmm.
revenue contract, so there are some configurations which will indicate that, this is revenue accounting relevant.
Okay.
Okay, if you configure that, based on that configuration, whichever are configured as revenue relevant, all will go and create a contract in the POB.
Okay.
All create a POB in the contract. Now
Okay.
you will have a sales order number here, like
Mm-hmm.
100. So this will have item 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is 20. This is 30. So there is something called reference ID in one of the tables. I mean, the reference ID will take this value, which is
Mm-hmm.
100.
Okay.
Okay? And whichever has this 100 will all, and whichever are RAR relevant, will all go and create a revenue contract, same revenue contract.
Got it. Got it. It makes sense.
Yeah? Yeah.
On ECC, the item category
Mhm.
earlier, previously, item category was the um, indicator for the revenue recognition relevance.
That is one of that.
Right.
It is one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, this is how a revenue contracts get created. So now what actually the principle in principle it says is, like, for example, you take the same service sales order where you have a phone, you have, I'm just making call and text, which I'm used to. Okay. So now you say the contractual price of this is, say, $150 here. Services is $1,200 per year. Text is $600 per year. Let's assume this. So here, this is a contractual price, and all put together, they are selling it for $1,950. Or let me make this 100 and this 1,100. Okay, but this as a bundle they are selling it. Okay, so that they get benefited out of. Like, if you see many of the service providers, they will bundle the phone and the services, and then they offer a good price to the customer. But that doesn't mean that the phone is $100 only. It may be a little more, or so usually it will be more, right? So what company has to do is they have to decide a fair price for that product. Like, for example, if you have sold this phone separately, what would be the price of it? So if the price is, for example, let's say $400. Okay, this call may truly be like $800. I'll make this $600 and this is $400. Okay, now this is actually the freight price, or you may get this also like for 1200 and this may be also 800. Yeah, let's make this. So this may be the fair price, but if you are taking all the three, you will get it for this price. So when you are selling it this way, and the first month, what happens when they buy it, you have $100 here, okay, and you have, okay, this is 1200 only is better, let's put. So you have $100 here for the first month, and you have $50 here the first month, right? If you only consider how much you have to recognize for the 1 month. So this total is $250. But this is not the fair price or of this particular products. And since you are selling in a bundle, you have priced it this way. So what IFRS 15 says is, now this is the SSP, standalone selling price, what they call it, or the fair price of the product. So now you see the fair price of the product. You weigh each product, how much you see how much each product weighs out of the total SSP value, and that percentage you allocate it to the transaction price, and that value, which is called as allocated amount, becomes the is the price for which you have to recognize the revenue. Like for example, if SSP percentage here is 600 divided by, so this is 23% of it. This is 46%. Let's sum this up. Okay, now, so the phone, if you have sold it for 600, it would have weighted 23% of the total value. The call is 46% and the text is 31%. So now what the system does is, based on these percentages, this contractual price will be divided. That we call it as the allocated amount. Okay, so this, now if you take 23% of it, it becomes 438. Not this. I did some mistake. I guess we should get this divided by this divided by this into this. Sorry, yeah, this is where it went wrong. Into this divided by 100. Yeah. So if you see, this is the contractual price. You have some fair price for each one, which business will give us. And based on that, what percentage of each of the item for the total SSP will be calculated, and it will be allocated to each of the POB again. Okay, so this 1900 will be allocated in this manner. Now, if this, say suppose you have this is since a phone, you will, when you deliver it and customer starts using it, that is when the services are offered, or the product is offered to the customer. So you can decide what kind of event you need. Say, for example, that invoice. So once customer is invoiced, then you can say that, yes, I have transferred the right from me to the customer for the phone. So that is when this 484th company gets a right to show this as a revenue, $438. Now this one is divided into 12 months, for example. So every month, the business can recognize revenue of 73 for call and 48 for phone, for text. So for this you call it as a time-based. Okay. So this you call as a event-based. So whenever the time, which means now the contract start date and is, say, 10th January to 10th January 25, let's say. Both these are. Now, if you are in January month, then you can recognize the revenue of $73. And if you are in for this, you will recognize $48. So all put together, suppose you have invoiced the customer in January. Okay, so all put together, you will recognize $599 for January month. Okay, then February, what will happen? You have already recognized for that 438. So you will recognize for services call 73 and text 48. So you will recognize $121 for February. And this goes on till the contract ends. For example, let's think you have already contract start date, and of course, without, that doesn't make sense. Let's think there are some situations where, no, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to confuse you. Okay, so this is how it just goes. So the event can be invoice, goods issue, or there are some events that are there in the RAR which business can choose and use it based on their business process. And there is something, services are usually time-based. So based on the time-based, like how you want to scatter it, what kind of different methods are there to use, called as deferral methods, what deferral method you want to use. Based on all of that, you can distribute this revenue for the 12 months. So all those we will cover in the configuration part of it. So this is the basic idea which covers the 5 steps of the IRF principle. So first is you identify the contract with the customer, like what are the performance obligations that you wanted to put in the customer, put into the contract. So those performance obligations, how you want to put in the contract, you want to have separate performance obligations, or there is something called you can link the performance obligations sometimes. So what kind of performance obligations you want, you can identify those performance obligations in a contract, determine the transactional price. So this is the transactional price, which is nothing but the price from the operation document. So once the transaction price is decided, then allocate the transaction price to separate performance obligations in the contract. So how are you allocating this transactional price? Based on the SSPs. What is the weighted SSP for each of the contract item that will be distributed based on the weightages to this contractual price, and it will be allocated to each POB. So, and once the POB, whenever the event is done, at that point of time, you can recognize the revenue. Like for example, if I have sold this in January, but my contract start date and for call and text starts, say suppose, from 2nd of February. Okay, there is some other service Let's think that starts from 10th of January. So in that case, what happens? This service starts recognizing from 10th of January. These two services will start recognizing the revenue because our event is not started, which is time. And my time is indicating here February onwards. So this revenue will not be recognized here. It can only be recognized when we go into February. So that is what we call event. So what are the different events we have? How we have to configure that? I can show you when we go into the next classes. Okay. So identify the contract with the customer. This is what I have shown you. So as a simple case, as I said, you will have one operational document which will flow into one RAR contract. But this is also something that is possible where you have two different contracts and then you can put all of it into the same revenue accounting contract. Like there is another situation. Like say, for example, there is a phone you have taken, which is a smartphone pack. Okay, the operational document will have, sorry. So the operational document will have a bundle for the smartphone pack, a smartphone and a battery charger. Okay. And this, when you have sold it, you wanted to bring this both together into only one POB. So you have made smartphone pack as a POB. But there is something which is implicit there, which is the upgrade right. And that is not there in the operational document. And you wanted to bring this in the RAR contract to recognize the revenue. In that case, you make this as a linked POB and this will be the leading POB. So there are different arrangements that are possible within RAR, but one very simple one is you have a sales order with different items. Whatever items you wanted to bring into the RAR contract, those will flow into the RAR contract as a POBs. That's the simplest case. So this is an example where I have shown you, like this is a contractual price, like take a mobile phone and a service, and what is the SSP and what is the percentage and allocated amount. Like I said, the two major things, of course we have three, but two major things that people usually use are event-based and time-based fulfillment. So event-based can be your goods issue, you can have an acceptance date, or you can have goods issue, what do you call invoice. So all these are event-based. Whereas time-based, it is based on the durations. What kind of durations you have it. Sorry. So how is the integration here? So RAR has something integration with sales and distribution, integration with the BRIM. It has integration with non-SAP systems too, third-party systems. So all these will form the operational, will flow, the operational documents from this will flow into the revenue accounting. And we have something called Business Rules Framework, which is shortly called as BRF Plus. I think people who are doing S4HANA has this BRF Plus features now adding into some of the functionalities like output determination and other things. So that BRF Plus it is where you set the rules or how the attributes of each of it is required, and that will flow all these into the RAR contract. So yeah, this is small workflow here. Yeah. So as I said, you have SD item 1 and 2 as the integration components. It will flow. There is something called revenue accounting items. Those are created, and these revenue accounting items further will be creating the performance obligations. So this is the revenue accounting engine where you will have mainly the RAR contract. Also, you have fulfillment management and some other features. But this is what RAR contract is what we usually use to a greater extent. So this is a diagram of how different layers are used and how integrated system will use in creating a RAR contract. But as I have shown you, that's a basic functionality. So if you see the order and contract, you can combine the contracts. So you can say whether it is a distinct, non-distinct, all these I'll cover in the next classes. So linked POB, leading POB, this is something based on the business requirement. It is not on the usual cases that we will use it. So these are some of the words that you will keep hearing again and again, which I will again cover during the first class in detail what they all meant and where we use all of it. Yeah, so we have, you have used, one of you have said you have used ECC, so you might not be having Fiori, so we can see Fiori also, which is very user interactive and easy to use, good to have feature.
Lakshmi, one question.
Yeah.
On the architecture part, is RAR sitting on a separate box or is it inbuilt in HANA itself?
No, this is inbuilt in HANA itself. Like
Okay.
if you have, as you said in ECC, it's not inbuilt. So they have a different engine. So the process there was different. So here it is integrated and most of it is automated and less interference, manual interference is required.
Okay. And to activate revenue accounting on HANA, do we have to activate some business functions like in ECC we had to do?
What business functions like, for example?
Normally on ECC side, revenue recognition did not come as activated. Once there were some business functions, once they were activated, some additional tables linked, they became active and we had to make some changes.
Okay, no, I mean, those are not required here. It is automated and we have standard SAP tables too here.
Okay. Thanks.
So yes, so what we can see is how the integration has happened. We can see there is something called inbound processing. So how the order items will flow into the RAR contract that we can see. Contract management, so what do we need and what are the different changes, contract changes, like you have an invoice cancellation, so how it is impacting. You have a credit memo, how it is impacting. All that we can see in the contract changes and how the fulfillment will happen, how invoices will impact. All that we can cover in the future classes. And how the revenue postings will be there. And also we can see especially what are the important database tables that these have and then how we can interpret and how we can connect these tables with each other that I can show you and then we can look into in more detail when we progress. And there is something called reporting. 2023 has more analytics than previous versions, but I can tell you what reporting kind of, for reporting usually companies will have their own data query systems in which they will write the code and then they will analyze the data for reporting, but all that is basically from the SAP standard tables from S4HANA RAR. So those tables, how we can use it, I can just give a quick quick introduction how we can use it in one class.
What is
Migration transition we cannot see here, but this is something of a bigger topic. Migration and transition. If I can give a brief introduction on this migration and transition as well. Yeah, please go ahead.
I wanted to ask on the last module, this BRIM. What is BRIM?
Okay. So BRIM is billing receivables. I'm sorry. I mean, I forgot the full form of it, but BRIM basically is like, you have how you have SD. Similarly, BRIM is for it's where you can have subscriptions and subscription contracts, those features, and these billing services and convergent invoicing. All these will be a part of BRIM. So BRIM is also basically for a sales perspective, but more into like telecom. It has more integration features with the consumer units, whatever you call it. So all those for bill plans and other stuff, BRIM is more feasible. So some companies will use BRIM, some companies will use SD. But see, there are some integration changes between these two, which we can cover for BRIM in one session or two. But whatever RAR concepts are there, the RAR concepts will remain the same. Only some integration points are different, but most of the RAR concepts are same for both BRIM and SD.
Okay. So topic 43 and 44 on the right hand side, they are there with and without BRIM also, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because on ECC we do the real account determination in standard config. So if some company is using BRIM, is it becoming totally different?
No, BRIM will not be totally different. Like for RAR, you will be, if you are a RAR consultant, you will work on the RAR module, right? But only thing is like knowing how the BRIM terminology is there, that will be an advantage. Like how we have sales order, invoice. It will also have same things, but it little different functionality and different integration touch points.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So this is all pretty much. The basic concept is this, and this is where RAR starts, and which forms the basis for this. So, yeah, how we have to do, what are the different kind of features RAR has in the configurations that we can see in the upcoming classes. Any questions?
How much of SD do we need to know for this class?
You said you are a FICO from FICO, right?
Yes.
Are you from FICO?
Yeah.
Okay. See, SD, you don't need to know much about it. You can manage without knowing it. But if you know those basic terminologies, it will be like you can easily understand if SD person is talking. But otherwise, also you can pretty much start with RAR. That's okay.
Thanks.
But we can start one basic session for SD if you want. Just I don't show you the configurations, but what are there in the SD? What are the terms we can have a look at?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
My question is on the other side. So, how much of FICO do I need to understand RAR?
So you are from which background?
I am from SD background.
Yeah. So yes, I can understand what you are saying because I am from SD background too.
Okay.
So Yeah, these terms as actually are little different, and there are many accounting principles, I mean, which you may have to understand, like how, I mean, how quickly you need to figure out what is going wrong, but that's all based on the practice, you will definitely get it.
Okay.
So that should be okay. But
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I mean, those accounting terms and other things we have to get used to. Like if I say a deferred amount or unbilled receivable or ledger, subledger, a
Yeah.
FICO guy can understand it very easily, but those we have to understand those terms and then how
Yeah.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we have to.
Thankfully, those terms I have faced earlier when I
Okay.
was doing revenue recognition on SEC side, ECC side. So
Mm-hmm.
apart from that, so unbilled revenue, deferred revenue, and what?
So you have some idea of all of it, of this, right?
Yeah, but I don't know anything about IFRS. Those
That's okay.
guidelines.
I mean, so whatever 5 steps we have shown you for the IFRS,
Okay.
that's it. And how the concept of unbilled receivable and deferred revenue is, that is what is more important. Like uh, there are two parallel terms. One is deferred revenue and contract liability, unbilled receivable and contract asset. So like you have IFRS rules as well as GAAP rules, right? GAAP principles.
Right.
So usually businesses with GAAP, they usually go with deferred revenue and unbilled receivables. IFRS is contract asset and liabilities, but that's little different. We will touch those topics too.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. But most of the companies, they go with deferred revenue and unbilled receivables, which is less tedious and less, I mean, it's easier, quite simpler concept than the contract asset and liabilities.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, Lakshmi. I have a one
Yes.
question.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is this require of any much knowledge of FICO or SD?
So do you have SAP, any other SAP?
Yeah, present I am working in individual. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, if you have any other SAP, I mean, I think you should be able to get this FICO. That's what, what happens is if you don't know FICO or SD, you should get used to both of these terms. But process-wise, familiarity-wise, since you are familiar with SAP, if you
Okay.
work on these concepts, you will be able to pick this up.
Okay, you talking CRM now?
No, see, CRM is, I mean, I don't think people are much into the CRM. Most of them, either they use SD or BRIM.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Yeah. But SD or BRIM also, you don't need to know those things.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
you
you can
can,
understand the flow of the data, right?
yes, correct. Usually RAR consultant deals with RAR part of it. But those,
Okay.
when it comes for integrations, if we know, that will be an advantage. Otherwise, we should be able to get to the pace of just understanding, not in depth, but what they are talking. At least we should get to know, so that we can, during the integrations, we will be able to deal with that.
Yeah, RAR configuration done in S4HANA.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is in S4HANA right now, correct. Everybody is using S4HANA and RAR.
Okay. Thank you, Lakshmi.
Yeah. Yeah. Naveen, are you there? So is Naveen here?
Yeah. Any more queries, Vijay, Sudhakar?
I'm good.
I guess
Thanks,
Kaushik has
Lakshmi.
done. Yeah, Kaushik has done. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lakshmi, for the nice demo.
Yeah. So yeah, Naveen will be in touch with you, and you can get in touch with Naveen, and then we will see how we will take this forward and from when we can start the classes. All right.
Right.
Thanks, Lakshmi.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.